Anybody wants to join, please find me. My question comes that I seen that this was supposed to be the moral defense to build the wall. And we could argue whether we need to secure our borders and stop immigrants from coming in, but is the question really about using eminent domain to take people's private property to build a wall, or is it about finding a way to sustain our border to stop people from being able to scale it? Like you said, Stanford has found a way to prevent intruders without a physical wall. Shouldn't the U.S. aspire to do just as good as Stanford is?
I take your question to be asking not a question about whether we need a wall, but what kind of a wall. And I'm using the term wall here metaphorically. You seem to agree. This reminds me a little bit, by the way, of Frost's poem Mending Wall. Because in Mending Wall, you've got a neighbor who's railing against his neighbor for building a wall, right? But while he's railing on the neighbor for building a wall, he never claims the right to go into his neighbor's property. He never claims the right to take his neighbor's stuff. He accepts the need for a wall. He just doesn't like the wall. He thinks it could be done a different way. And I agree with you. Let me suggest this way. If you have a better suggestion for how to actually enforce security on the southern border, let's just say through a combination of various techniques, you should propose it. I think, see, the problem is these topics are never debated. They're never debated. Right now, the debate is frozen between the wall or, in effect, porous borders. It's a very bad debate. We should actually be debating what is the best way to enforce security on the southern border. And I'm not dogmatic about that. I'm open to all kinds of ideas. I think Trump's point in emphasizing the wall is simply this, that for now 30 years, there are these bogus debates about fixing immigration and things like, what do we do with all the illegals who are in America and so on. None of those problems can be seriously considered until a country has a real border. Now, again, you seem to agree. There should be a border. There's just a better way to do it.
Domain to take citizens' private property.
Ever?
And your analogy, and I'm not being rude, I admire what you're doing, but your analogy is flawed because the neighbor building the wall, in order for your analogy to work, the neighbor would have to step over my property line, take my property, and try to build that wall on my property. And that's what eminent domain does, is it takes private citizens' property. Now, we can argue over how secure a border needs to be and how to go about it. But when you begin the argument with we need to forcefully take somebody's stuff, that is not a good foundation to start with.
Let me ask you this. In the settling of America, do you think that eminent domain should have been prohibited? Yeah, you're building a railroad that's running, let's just say, from New York to California, and there's a group of people in the way who have homes and they don't want to sell, and they don't want to sell at any price. What do you think should happen?
I believe all alternatives should be considered, and if it's ruled that there's no other way to do it but that, and it's in the national security, then I'd say yes. But the problem is the argument has become more about, I want a wall to feel good about seeing a wall, rather than I want to make sure my border is secure.
I'm in the second camp. Okay, let's keep going.